Well, earlier today, the ANC in the Western Cape issued a statement saying it would be approaching the police to open a case against Fritz. Sifiso Mtsweni is the ANC spokesperson in the Western Cape. Sifiso, good afternoon to you. The police now have an inquiry. How important do you believe this step by the police is in this case?
Good afternoon, Stephen. Indeed, we've written a letter to the Commissioner yesterday, because we believed that the Premier of the Western Cape is actually dealing with a criminal matter in an administrative way. You would remember that, in fact, the Premier has been sitting on this matter for 2 months now, where allegations of sexual harassment came to his attention, mostly by victims who were working in the department. He's asked those victims to submit affidavits to him. They've done so, and he was constitutionally obligated as a Premier of the province, where matters of law enforcement arose, that he actually refers those to. But instead, he decided to be a policeman, a prosecutor, as well as a judge. And it's only after the victims have actually come forward that he then decided to suspend the MEC. And that's why we thought it's important that the provincial commissioner actually looks into this matter. And if there are matters of a criminal nature, such must be dealt with by the competent bodies.
Where I get a little confused in this entire case, well, there are two aspects to it. One is we don't really know what the allegation is. We think we know. Maybe we're right. We probably are, but we don't know for certain. That's the one thing. The second thing is, as I understand what the police are saying, is that they're awaiting certain documents. Now, this is the first time I've ever heard in a case that supposedly relates to sexual abuse, sexual harassment, or sexual assault, that people are waiting for documents. I don't know what those documents could be. I mean, if there's a complaint, there's a complaint.
Well, I think the first part of your question is we do know. The Premier himself has come out after being exerted with pressure, that the nature of the cases surrounding the MECs are that of a sexual harassment and a gender-based violence. And also, number two, the victims themselves are the ones who have actually come out to say they've deposed of affidavits to the Premier, and the Premier has been sitting on them. And I must say that should the victims not have come out, we would still be sitting in the dark and not knowing what's going on, because Alan Winde is busy managing internal DA dynamics. Because why would you sit on something for 2 months and only when the victims are actually coming out? And on top of that, you don't even fire the MEC, you place him on suspension. And I think what the police commissioner's office is actually saying is that if there are matters of this nature, and also given the fact that the victims are now openly speaking out, the information that sits with the Premier, particularly affidavits and whatever it is that he was doing, must be handed over to this inquiry so that the police can satisfy themselves whether this is an administrative or a criminal matter. So we do know what's going on here.
Well, I was going to come to one of the points that you make, which is that so far the MEC is only suspended. It would surely seem impossible that he can stay in office. He needs to resign or be fired.
Well, and quite ironically, Albert Fritz is a leader of the Democratic Alliance in the Western Cape. And he has stepped down as a leader of the Democratic Alliance in the Western Cape, and yet he remains an MEC. Now, we're saying that, in fact, if you have noticed what has been happening, particularly in the Western Cape over the last few months, they fired Matikizela, who was the leader of the opposition, or who was the leader of the DA, and then an MEC. They fired him. Alan Winde brought him back through a back window as his advisor. They removed Dane Plato as a mayor of Cape Town. Today, they brought him back through a back window into the legislature. And we wonder whether now there's a move to really insert Matikizela and Dane Plato into this space. But we think that they must not trivialize and use very serious matters of gender-based violence to try and manage their own internal dynamics.
Thanks very much indeed. Sifiso Mtsweni, spokesperson for the ANC in the Western Cape.